Bu
Theo
broşürde
Brennick
tüm
had
yeni
seen a lot of
rotalarımız mevcut.
strange things
Keyifli
in his
yolculuklar
years
dileriz.
bouncing between stations and
Çok teşekkür ederim.
settlements. But he'd never seen a crowd move like water around a rock the way these people moved around the woman by the fountain. It was almost choreographed, the way they maintained distance. A businessman in an expensive envirosuit veered left without looking up from his datapad. A family of 4, 2 adults, 2 kids with bioluminescent skin, took a detour that added 30 meters to their route. Even the cleaning drone seemed programmed to give her a wider berth than normal. She stood with perfect posture, one hand extended, holding a stack of pale green leaflets. Her other hand rested at her side, fingers occasionally twitching as if fighting the urge to just leave. Her ears swept back in those elegant curves Theo had seen on various species across the galaxy, though he couldn't place which one she belonged to. She wore simple clothes, nothing remarkable, nothing that screamed danger or controversy. But people treated her like she was radioactive. Theo stopped at a drink vendor and ordered something cold and caffeinated, positioning himself where he could watch without being obvious. The vendor, a squat creature with too many arms, followed his gaze and made a sound like grinding gears. "Don't even think about it," the vendor said. "Think about what?" Theo accepted his drink, some local thing that tasted like citrus and regret. "That one's trouble. Been here 3 days. Security wants her gone, but she's not breaking any laws, technically." The vendor's multiple eyes swiveled independently, keeping track of customers while talking. "Just offering leaflets, but nobody takes them. You know why? I'm guessing you're about to tell me. Because smart people mind their business. That's Verani. You know what happened with them." Theo shook his head, taking another sip of his drink and immediately regretting it. "Exactly. Nobody does because nobody asks. Safer that way." The vendor returned his attention to other customers, conversation clearly over. Theo watched the woman, Verani, apparently, offer a leaflet to a teenage girl who literally flinched away like she'd been offered a live grenade. The girl's parents pulled her along quickly, shooting dark looks over their shoulders. The Verani woman's shoulders sagged microscopically, but she straightened again, reset her expression, and waited for the next passerby. There was something desperately sad about her persistence. Something that reminded Theo of his sister, Alina, who'd spent years campaigning for labor rights in the mining colonies despite threats, blacklisting, and general exhaustion. Alina never quit. She just kept showing up, kept pushing, even when everyone told her it was hopeless. Alina had eventually won. It took 8 years, but she won. Theo finished his terrible drink and tossed the container in a recycler. He had 2 hours before his transport to the outer colonies. He should check his luggage, confirm his berth, maybe grab actual food instead of whatever that beverage was supposed to be. Instead, he found himself walking toward the fountain. The closer he got, the more aware he became of the crowd's reaction. It wasn't just avoidance, it was performative avoidance. People were making sure others saw them not engaging. A woman in a business suit actually made eye contact with a colleague and shook her head in an exaggerated, "not me" gesture while walking past. The Verani woman saw him approaching. Her eyes, a striking amber color that caught the plaza's artificial sunlight, widened slightly. Hope flickered across her features, then was quickly suppressed, as if she'd learned not to expect anything good. Theo stopped in front of her. Up close, he could see the fine tremor in her extended hand, the slight puffiness around her eyes suggesting recent or frequent crying, the way her jaw was clenched with determination. "Hello," she said, her voice hoarse from disuse or emotion. "Would you like to learn about the Memory Preservation Initiative?" Theo reached out and took a leaflet. The paper was thin, recycled, the kind that suggested a serious budget shortage. The moment his fingers touched it, the ambient noise of the plaza dropped like someone had adjusted the volume. He looked around to find at least 30 people staring at him with expressions ranging from shock to pity to outright contempt. A security officer near the east entrance touched his communicator, eyes locked on Theo. A group of teenagers erupted in nervous laughter and scattered. An elderly man shook his head slowly, disappointment written across his weathered face. "What exactly did I just do?" Theo asked, keeping his voice calm. The Verani woman was crying now, tears streaming down her face without sound. She pressed her free hand to her mouth, trying to compose herself and failing spectacularly. "You acknowledged me," she whispered. "You're the first, in 3 days, you're the first person to take one." Theo looked down at the leaflet. It was printed in multiple languages, the translation matrix making his eyes water slightly as the text shifted to match his neural implant settings. The message was simple, almost heartbreakingly so. Memory preservation initiative, help us remember what was lost. Meeting tonight, 2100 hours, lower commerce level, unit 847. All are welcome. We will not forget. At the bottom was a symbol, 3 interlocking circles with a star at the center, and a date. Remembering Verani Prime, 2389-2404. What happened in 2404? Theo asked. The woman's crying intensified. She shook her head, unable to speak. The security officer was walking toward them now, hand still on his communicator. Theo made a decision he'd probably regret. Unit 847. Tonight at 2100, I'll be there. You don't understand, the woman managed. Taking that leaflet, being seen with me, it'll mark you. People will know. It could cost you. Then they'd better have a good reason, Theo said. He folded the leaflet carefully and put it in his jacket pocket. I'm Theo Brennick, and I think someone should probably explain to me what the hell is going on. The security officer reached them, his expression professionally neutral. Sir, I need to inform you that association with certain activist groups can result in travel restrictions and enhanced security screenings. Is she breaking any laws? Theo asked. No, but... Then neither am I. Theo looked at the Verani woman. Tonight, I'll be there. He walked away before she could respond, or before the security officer could escalate. As he moved through the crowd, people parted for him now too, creating that same deliberate distance. He'd been in the plaza for less than an hour, and somehow he'd become invisible in exactly the same way she was. His communicator buzzed. A message from the transport company. Security advisory. Passenger Brennick flagged for additional screening. Please arrive 2 hours early for departure processing. Theo deleted the message and headed toward the lower levels. He had a meeting to attend, and suddenly his transport to the outer colonies felt a lot less important than understanding why taking a leaflet had become an act of defiance. Unit 847 was exactly as depressing as Theo expected. A storage unit converted into a makeshift office, complete with a fold-out table, 3 mismatched chairs, a portable data terminal that looked like it had been salvaged from a junkyard, and walls covered in printed documents held up with actual adhesive tape. The aesthetic screamed, guerrilla organization running on hope and desperation. The Verani woman from the plaza was there, along with 2 others. An older human man with silver hair and the kind of deep-set exhaustion that spoke of years carrying heavy burdens stood near the terminal. A teenage boy, mixed heritage with human features and subtle alien characteristics Theo couldn't quite place, sat cross-legged on the floor sorting through physical papers. All 3 stared at Theo when he entered like he'd manifested from pure wishful thinking. You came, the Verani woman said. I'm Nyra Kellis. Theo Brennick, he glanced around the cramped space. So, someone want to tell me why taking a leaflet about memory preservation is apparently the social equivalent of announcing I have a contagious disease. The older man snorted. Because in many ways it is. I'm Garrett. Been doing this for 7 years. Lost my job, my apartment, and most of my friends in the first 6 months. He poured something amber from an unlabeled bottle into a chipped cup and offered it to Theo. Welcome to the resistance. We have cheap liquor and emotional damage. Theo took the cup but didn't drink yet. What exactly are you resisting? The teenager looked up. Forgetting, We're resisting forgetting. I'm Kip, by the way. My mom was Verani. Was? Theo asked carefully. Dead, like most of them. Kip returned his attention to the papers, but Theo could see his hands shaking slightly. Nyra pulled out one of the chairs and sat heavily, like standing for 3 days in the plaza had finally caught up with her body. How much do you know about the Verani? Honestly, nothing. Until today, I didn't even know your species' name. That's the point, Garrett said. 15 years ago, everyone knew. We were a mid-tier industrial species, population about 4 billion, primarily located on Verani Prime in the outer arc. Resource-rich planet, strategic location, valuable trade relationships. Then Helios Extraction Corp decided they wanted our lithium reserves. Theo felt his stomach sink. He'd heard of Helios. Everyone had. They were one of the 3 largest mining conglomerates in known space. They'd been mining on Verani Prime for 20 years, Nyra continued, her voice flat with the tone of someone who'd told this story too many times. Standard operation. They followed most protocols. But they wanted access to deeper deposits, and our government, said no. Too close to the planet's tectonic stabilizers. Too risky. So Helios ignored them, Theo guessed. Worse. They bribed enough officials to get preliminary approval, then started deep core extraction before the environmental impact studies were complete. Garrett pulled up files on the terminal, showing geological charts Theo couldn't fully interpret. 6 months later, the planet's crust destabilized. Massive earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, atmospheric contamination from released subsurface gases. Within 2 years, Verani Prime was uninhabitable, Nyra said quietly. 3 billion died in the initial disasters. The rest of us scattered to refugee camps and settlements across the galaxy. Theo felt like he'd been punched. 3 billion people, that's genocide. Allegedly. Kip's voice dripped with bitter sarcasm. According to official records, it was a natural disaster exacerbated by poor Verani environmental management. Helios released a comprehensive report showing how our government's negligence caused the instability. They had experts, data, simulations. The Interstellar Trade Council accepted their findings. That's insane, Theo said. That's public relations, Garrett corrected. Helios spent more on their disinformation campaign than most planetary governments have in their entire budgets. Within 5 years, the narrative was set. The Verani caused their own destruction through incompetence and hubris. By year 10, questioning that narrative was considered conspiracy theory. By year 15, now it's social poison. Supporting Verani causes means you're anti-business, anti-progress, probably mentally unstable. Nyra pulled out her own data pad, showing Theo pages of legislation, corporate policy documents, and social media analyses. Helios didn't just control the narrative. They made association with us dangerous. Companies that hire Verani refugees face regulatory scrutiny. Transit stations that host Verani cultural events lose corporate contracts. Schools that teach the real history get defunded. It's systematic erasure, Kip added. They're killing us twice, first our planet, then our memory. Theo finally drank from the cup Garrett had given him. It burned going down but helped settle his spinning thoughts. So you hand out leaflets in the plaza, trying to wake people up. Trying to remind them we exist, Nyra said. That we're still here. That what happened to us was murder, not negligence. She looked at him with those amber eyes, and Theo saw a grief so deep it had its own gravity. You took my leaflet. You're the first person in 3 days. Do you know how that feels? To stand there offering people the truth, and watching them choose to turn away because acknowledging me might cost them something. Why do you keep doing it? Theo asked. Because my daughter is alive, Nyra said simply. She's 14. She goes to school under a false identity. Because being openly Verani means bullying, isolation, teachers who give her failing grades no matter how hard she works. She asked me last month if she could get surgery to make her ears look more human. She's ashamed of what she is because the entire galaxy has told her she should be. Nyra's voice cracked. I stand in that plaza because if we all just hide and pretend and forget, then Helios wins completely. They don't just get to destroy our world. They get to erase us from existence. Make it like we never mattered. Like 3 billion lives were just an unfortunate footnote in the history of profitable extraction. The storage unit fell silent except for the hum of the terminal and the distant sounds of the station's infrastructure. Theo looked at the three of them, Nyra, Garrett, Kip, and saw what stubborn hope looked like when it had been beaten down and starved but refused to die. He thought about his sister again, about all the times people told her to quit, to accept reality, to stop making trouble. "Okay," Theo said. "What do you need?" Garrett laughed, surprised. "Kid, you don't understand what you're signing up for. I took the leaflet. I'm already marked." Theo pulled it from his pocket, the pale green paper slightly crumpled. "My transport flagged me for enhanced security screening before I even got here. So either I slink away and deal with the consequences of one moment of decency, or I actually help and make it mean something. What do you need?" Nyra was crying again, but smiling this time. "We need witnesses. People willing to listen to testimonies and help us archive them. We need technical help. Our systems are ancient and barely functional. We need," she paused, "we need people to see us, to acknowledge we're here, that's all." "Then let's start there," Theo said. He pulled out his personal terminal, considerably newer than theirs. "Show me what you've got." Theo missed his transport. Then he missed the next one, and the one after that. A week passed in the cramped storage unit, and Theo found himself becoming part of something he didn't fully understand but knew was important. Garrett taught him how to navigate the legal gray areas of information preservation, the careful dance of staying just barely within the bounds of free speech, while saying things powerful people didn't want said. Kip showed him the digital architecture of their archive, hundreds of testimonies, thousands of documents, all carefully encrypted and distributed across redundant systems to prevent deletion. And Nyra told him stories about Verani Prime before the end, about her daughter Mira, who loved mathematics and wanted to be an engineer but couldn't put her real name on scholarship applications, about her husband, who died in the initial quakes protecting a neighbor's children, about the systematic way their culture was being erased, name by name, memory by memory. Every day, Nyra went back to the plaza. Every day, Theo went with her. At first, nothing changed. People still avoided them. Security still watched. The crowd still performed their elaborate dance of deliberate ignorance. But on the 5th day, something shifted. A young woman approached them, maybe 25, with the kind of nervous determination Theo recognized from every person who'd ever decided to do something brave and stupid. She looked around, checked that no one she knew was watching, and reached out for a leaflet. "Thank you," she whispered, taking it quickly and walking away before anyone could see her pause. Nyra stared after her, stunned. On the 6th day, 2 people took leaflets. On the 7th, 5. It wasn't a flood. It was barely a trickle, but it was something. That evening, they celebrated in the storage unit with cheap station food and wine that Garrett claimed was technically drinkable. Kip rigged the terminal to play music, some haunting Verani melody that made Theo's chest ache even though he didn't understand the words. "You started something," Nyra said to Theo, sitting beside him on one of the mismatched chairs. "Just by standing there, by being visible with me, people saw that someone was willing and it gave them permission." "I didn't do anything special," Theo protested. "I just took a leaflet." "That's the point," Garrett said, raising his cup in a toast. "In a world where everyone is trained to look away, simply looking is revolutionary." Theo pulled up his terminal and navigated to the Crosspoint station, housing registry. He'd been staying in temporary berths, always one flight away from leaving. The outer colonies could wait. Alina had taught him that sometimes you find your purpose in unexpected places, and you don't question it, you just show up. He submitted an application for permanent residence. "What are you doing?" Nyra asked, looking over his shoulder. "Staying," Theo said. "If that's okay with you. Turns out I'm not very good at ignoring people." Nyra laughed, the sound watery with emotion. She put her hand over his on the terminal. "More than okay." Later, after the wine was gone and Kip had fallen asleep surrounded by paper documents, Theo stood with Nyra outside the storage unit, looking up at the station's artificial sky, displaying a rotation of different homeworlds. Currently, it showed a blue-green planet with distinctive purple-tinged clouds. "That's Verani Prime," Nyra said softly. "Before, we had purple algae in the upper atmosphere, made the most beautiful sunsets." "Tell me about it," Theo said. "Everything I want to know." So she did. She told him about cities built into canyon walls, about festivals celebrating the bloom of crystal flowers that only grew in their planet's unique soil, about her childhood home near the equatorial forests. She talked until her voice went hoarse, and Theo listened, bearing witness to a world that would only live now in memory and carefully preserved archives. The crowd would still mostly refuse to take the leaflets. The system that made acknowledging genocide socially dangerous would still exist. Helios Corp would still deny responsibility, and the official narrative would remain unchanged. But now, at least, there were two people standing in that plaza instead of one. And tomorrow, maybe three, maybe five. Maybe enough that eventually the crowd would have to walk around them instead of pretending they didn't exist. Theo had learned something in that storage unit, surrounded by desperate hope and careful documentation, that bearing witness was its own form of resistance. That sometimes the most radical thing you could do was simply refuse to look away. His journey to the outer colonies was over before it began. He'd found something better, a place where his presence mattered, where one small act of acknowledgment had unraveled the first thread in a carefully woven tapestry of enforced forgetting. As Theo fell asleep that night,